Welcome back to today's video. Today I'll be showing you how to make this football manipulation graphic. But as always, before we get into things, make sure to subscribe, like, comment, and tell me what you want to see next. Let's get into it. The first thing we're going to do is cut out the background. Come up to Select and select Sky. Come up to Select and select Subject. Now that you've selected the rocks out from the background, enlarge the image slightly so that the rocks are only showing. Bring your render down slightly, like so. Now what we'll do is we'll create a new layer. Come to Gradient. Make sure it's a foreground to transparent and make the color black. Convert this to a smart object. Bring it down slightly and in. We're actually going to delete this and make our own one. Like so. Now what we'll do is we'll come to this Ollie Watkins layer here, create a clipping mask, come to here, turn down the flow to 20%, and mask the shadows in. Now what we'll do is we'll create a new layer underneath Ollie Watkins. Increase the flow back up to around 30%. Change the brush size. And again, make a new layer. Bring it down slightly like so. Make sure there's also shadows under his arms too. And again, come back up to your shadow layer and start drawing in more shadows. Now that you've done that, insert this photo of the sky. You can find these on Envato Elements or on DeviantArt. They're pretty much free to download, and you can find pretty much anything on there that you really need to make anything manipulation-wise. Now what we'll do is we'll also make some more shadows on the front of the rocks, just to make it look a little bit more realistic. And then now we will make a new layer, clipping mask, and come to the back and put some shadows on, some highlights on the back of the rocks, just to make them stand out a little bit more. Now once you've done that, come to this Ollie Watkins layer, or your render. Increase the exposure a little bit, play around with the clarity and texture and the contrast. Decrease the saturation a tiny little bit, increase the shadows, come to detail, and again, increase the sharpening. Now that that's done, color lookup. Again, 3-strip is the one we want. And we'll just put a generic color lookup layer for this graphic. The color lookup layer we'll be using is futuristic, bleak, and we'll come up to our blending modes and set it to color. But we'll also decrease the opacity to around 50%. And now we will come back up to here and put in a little bit more saturation into Ollie Watkins, just to bring out these reds again. So hue and saturation. Make sure you clip it. Reds, and increase the saturation. Selective color, and we'll also again increase the reds, just slightly like so. Let's see the difference it makes. Now what we'll do is we'll again create 2 clipping masks. Come to the bottom, label this W and B, select them, set them to overlay. Change back to your black brush for the first one. Turn your flow back up to 100 and your opacity down. And start making shadows on the kit of Ollie Watkins. and face and arms. Now that you've made the shadows, switch back to your whites layer and draw over the whites, light parts of the image that are already there. You can see the difference that it makes. Again, what we'll do is we will make a levels layer, turn it right down, invert it, come to here, and draw some more shadows on the image. Like so. Now what we'll do is we'll come to the background here. Play around with the clarity and the texture and a little bit of the contrast, just because it gives a little bit more of a pop. What we'll do is now we'll also play around with the saturation in the background of the sky. Because we want that real bleak look, we're going to turn down the saturation and increase the lightness a tiny little bit. And now we'll come to the rocks and add a little bit of levels and vibrance to them. Like so. Tiny little bit of saturation. Now what we'll do is again, we'll come to the background. With our white selected, we'll put some dots in the background just to make the sky pop a tiny little bit more. Like so. Set these to overlay and turn down the opacity. As you can see, it just makes the background pop a little bit more then. Now what we'll do is we'll come to the top, make a new layer, and add in some lighting at the top, as seen here. Now we'll add a new color lookup layer, come to color lookup, go to candlelight, and decrease the opacity to around 60%. As you can see, just gives it that real bleak and grainy look. Now we'll come back to Ollie Watkins, make a new layer, turn it back to black, and add just a little bit more shadow to the image. Set it to overlay. Just because we want a little bit more shadow on the kit and on the player. There we go. And see the difference that this makes already. What we'll do is we'll make this a purple, real deep, and this an orange. If it lets me keep the purple I just had. This one an orange. Come to our blending modes. We will come to overlay and turn this down to around 25%. Now what we'll do is we'll press Control Shift Alt and E to group it all together, convert it to a smiled object, come to Camera Raw Filter, increase the clarity to around 20, the exposure to around 05, and increase the contrast. Now we'll add a heap of grain and a little bit of vignette. And there you go. That's how you make this sports graphic. If you enjoyed this video, make sure you like the video, subscribe, and comment and tell me what you want to see next. See ya.